Marsha's Backstreet Cafe, a homey local eatery in Chattanooga, serves up the best burgers, daily blue plate specials, Marsha's famous tuna and chicken salad, and if you're looking for a great catering option to feed a crowd, Marsha has you covered. Marsha's Backstreet Cafe on Brainerd Road in Chattanooga is a go-to local favorite. Welcome to Scarred But Smarter podcast, hosted by Jeff Stiles, presented by CADIS, Council for Alcohol and Drug Abuse Services, sharing relatable stories of addiction recovery along with our hearts, our voices, and an abundant amount of love with all of those affected by the disease of addiction. We thank you for allowing us to be a part of your journey. And now, here is your host, Jeff Stiles.
Hey, folks, welcome back to Scarred But Smarter, the podcast that is sponsored by, supported by, and essentially would not exist without CADIS, Council on Alcohol and Drug Abuse Services, here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And my name is Jeff Stiles with a Y, and proud to be here at least once a month, usually twice a month. We're trying to actually get this thing completely dialed in, so it's just a matter of rote memory. And we're getting there. And I think it's going very, very well. I want to say thank you to Mary Catherine Gentry, the woman who actually popped up with this idea many, many months ago, and I think it's come to very, very good full fruition. Today, my guest is Daniel
DeVries.
I want to make sure I get that correct.
Yes.
I was DeVries.
Yeah,
DeVries.
DeVries.
And that is, what is that? Is that Dutch?
Dutch.
Dutch.
Yeah.
Well, glad to have you, Daniel.
Thank you.
And you'll just be Daniel from this point forward, so we'll avoid that.
That works.
Daniel's story is one that may be garden variety typical if you're looking at it through just purely AA eyes. We're all supposed to be pretty much all cut from the same cloth. I've discovered over my many, many years in the program that each individual story, though, is fascinating, and it has many, many, many facets. And Daniel, all I know is that you grew up in the Chattanooga area. You've traveled a lot around the country, and you obviously had issues with substances, alcohol and drugs, and a relapse not too terribly long ago. And that's pretty much what my notes tell me.
A one-day relapse after over a year, and a one-day relapse that led to a DUI, being drugged back through the system in the harshest way.
Wow.
Consequences higher than I'd ever had. I'd always been because of being a hairstylist, I knew I'd had access to lawyers and different people that would help me and help me as best they could to get out of the situation. But this one-day relapse, the judge just threw the book at me.
Well, I guess if I'm speaking for society, many people would say, well, good.
Yes, exactly.
And if even maybe speaking for the program, you want sympathy when it's for you or yours, but sometimes it's that swift kick in the butt that is what you need. I
told Mary Catherine, and I've told others, that it was the best thing that had happened to me because even though I was going through it, it was almost a little bit surreal because it was the moment that changed things around for me. It was the I've had it moment. It was the I can't, this is, I'm getting older. It just, the consequences were, they were totally bearable, but it just changed my life.
Well,
and I had it before and it didn't.
I want to get to the relapse, and so let's just say that's something we're gonna arrive at here very, very shortly, and is the importance and the dreadful reality of relapse and what it really means for somebody who has been sober for any length of time. Trust me on this one, folks. Trust me on this one. You go read what you want to read, listen to whoever you want to listen to. Relapse is an absolute nightmare, and anybody who wants to argue the progressive nature of addiction, come talk to me, because I promise you, everything you hear about, it'll only be worse. 100% accurate.
It is accurate because my lawyer was stunned how low my alcohol content was but my reaction was a complete blackout. I had an accident. Thank God I didn't hurt anybody. And yeah, it was awful.
We'll get to it in just a second. Let's kind of go back and do something unusual. Let's start at the beginning. So you were born and raised in Chattanooga, but as I understand,
Partly.
you were part of the system. I'll just use air quotes.
My sister and I, when we were 5, we were living with my grandfather, and my mother was in the picture. But my mother had A, B, and C happen to her, and so she only drank 7 years of her life, but the 7 years of her life were the part where I was 5, and then the system came in, and that being the Chambliss home, and they took us to the Chambliss home. Away, we actually, my sister and I, it was just a tragic situation that she remembers. I don't, but
maybe that's a blessing.
yeah. But I went to the Chambliss home and I stayed there probably a few years. And of course, they try to put you back with your parents. But my dad was not a safe place for me to be. He was just not a good guy. So we went with my aunt. But anyway, then I ended up at Bethel Bible. That was a beautiful experience. But both places had a zero tolerance for, and as I got older, I think the gay thing, I was pretty obvious when I was a kid.
Well, you just threw that out there. So you're gay.
Yeah, yes.
And growing up in, what we're talking about, the 70s?
Yes.
Okay.
And it was hard because in the system at that time, it just wasn't the norm, and it was a Chambliss home. And so there was a lot of verbal abuse from the other kids there that kind of shaped my mind and my insecurities. And then even though Bethel was a beautiful experience, it was the same thing. It was isolating as far as, and I think as I got older, as I started getting closer to being 12, it started being noticed by a few people that I was gay. And it was also a zero tolerance policy there. So,
I'm sorry. I have to shake my head a little bit. The idea of a zero tolerance policy to the way you are born is still just a little bit shocking to me. Even in the 70s or the 50s or the 1890s. I mean, I understand that we've come a long way in our understanding of such things, but the idea of we're going to have zero tolerance to blondes. We're going to have a zero tolerance for people with green eyes. It's just nonsensical.
They were very, very kind people, and it was a nice experience there. Other than that, other than feeling isolated, and going to school, it was picked on. It was picked on a lot, and that that shouldn't shape your adulthood, but it does. So. By the time I ended up going to Pensacola with my grandmother when I was about 12 or 13, and then that was some relief. That was great. That was awesome. But there again, my grandmother was a binge drinker, and she was great until she would disappear for a week
inside the bottle. Yeah,
and that happened several times, and that was very, very traumatizing.
Well, let me jump. I'm going to leap forward. You'll discover this as we have this discussion. I'm all over the place. Go into a racquetball court and take a golf ball and just throw it as hard as you can. That's kind of the way my interview style is. The growing up gay in the 70s inside the system is a podcast in and of itself. But your style of drunk. You talked about your mother, started and kind of apparently hit a kind of a peak pretty quick, and 7 hard years. Your grandmother, complete personality change.
Yes.
Something we've talked about in here many, many times on these podcasts in the past. Were you the same way? Did you was it a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type thing?
Obviously, that would be hard for me to say, I guess, but I definitely, my therapist, they say there's a technique, and it's called getting in touch with your inner child. And that didn't make sense to me. That took many, many years, but my inner child was angry. So when I would drink, that would come out. I actually mourned that side when I sobered up, when I would go through bouts of sobriety.
That's a long process, too.
Yeah.
We all have our inner children. Mm-hmm. I'd like to kick mine's ass every once in a while because it really, really still causes problems for me today. We all remember our bullies. I can only imagine what it was like for you. I'm not trying to speak down or be condescending, but I can only imagine what it must be like. Those are those memories for you. But yeah, that never goes away. That kid, that hurt, scared kid's always going to be in there. You can help them. You can nurture them. You can try to get them to talk a little bit, become out of their shell, maybe leave you alone in your adult life, but it never completely goes away.
Well, what it did to me is it made me a little overly sensitive, like a little more hypersensitive to someone's opinion, and it's taken a long time to try to shed that, and that is, I guess, a lack of acceptance, abandonment. I'm not, but we're still working on it, but we're getting there.
We're all works in progress to this point. When did you start using? What were your drugs of choice?
Probably it was drinking until I moved to Atlanta, and then drinking was just the segue, and then and it was cocaine, ecstasy, on and on.
And then we're talking about the 70s and 80s.
No. We're talking about I never touched any of that stuff until later.
Okay,
but just drinking.
Atlanta. I guess if I had to rank the places in the United States that I would not want to live trying to achieve sobriety, New Orleans would be number one. Atlanta wouldn't be a distant second. It'd be a tough town. It's a drinking town. It's a party town. It is a party town. Let's face it. The capital of the New South and all the things it's called itself. It relies very heavily on a party atmosphere.
Yeah, and that's what we did.
And so, how old were you?
I was probably when I started probably 25 when I started making my way down there just on the weekends, and I actually worked here and lived down there. I kept my apartment in Atlanta, and I worked here and just stayed with friends.
Wow,
kind of deal.
That's exactly kind of hard on a guy.
Yeah,
even 25 years old. That'll take something out of your stamina. So just a casual drinker, social drinker until it.
I thought so, but looking back, I lost over the past 10 years. I've lost just about all my besties to health, through reckless living or substance abuse. So that'll tell you about my choices right there.
Bad lifestyle choices.
Bad lifestyle. I mean, when you could go down, when you are seeing the sunrise, I'd say that's obsessive drinking the next day.
Yeah. I was never that person. I can probably count. I think I can literally count on one hand the times that I actually saw the sun come up because I'm lazy.
Okay.
I mean, I like to sleep. When I was partying, I still like to sleep. Even with all the help I would get from amphetamines and things of that nature, it was very rare. So that was kind of unusual for me. When did you start thinking, I have a problem?
Well, I got a DUI, which contributed to my consequence here. It's been 10 years now, but when I went to court a couple of years ago, it still was under the radar. It was still enough under 10 years, so they used it. So they I would say then 10 years of trying in and out of the rooms, relapsing, but just, in the last 10 years, just, I didn't have access to the party scene, but it was isolating, drinking.
Now you're in my neck of the woods.
Yeah. I would actually drink, and then when I would sober up, I still couldn't. I would look at my phone, all the texts of clients trying to get a hold of me, like we're talking a week that I just off on La La Land.
Seeking a peaceful retreat, a culinary adventure, or a connection with nature? Whether you're a nature lover, a food enthusiast, or a horse whisperer, Happy Valley Farms invites you to experience the magic of Southern living at its finest. Happy Valley Farms will offer a truly unique escape that will leave you refreshed and inspired. Come experience the magic of Happy Valley Farms, where every moment is sure to be a memory to cherish. Happy Valley Farms in Rossville, Georgia since 1936.
Step into a world of beauty and elegance at Gillinkert Flowers, Chattanooga's premier destination for every floral occasion, where beauty meets elegance in every gift and bloom. Gillinkert Flowers, located in Chattanooga's North Shore.
Let's dream big and take steps towards creating a community where everyone feels valued, supported, and empowered to reach their full potential. Support those on the path to recovery by donating to CADIS today.
Daniel DeVries is my guest. And Daniel, you know, this is a perfect opportunity if you want to take it. Obviously, you're giving your entire name. You do have a business here in town,
Correct.
And you're taking time away from it. Come have this conversation right now. So go ahead and get a plug in for it right now. You've mentioned your business and clients, but you haven't said what it is. Fire away. Give yourself a commercial.
I just have a little small salon next to Kenny's on Market Street, 1255 Market Street. That's the name. And yeah, been down there for 7 years.
Salon as in hair?
Salon is in hair, yes.
Okay,
sir.
all right. I could use a little trim. I might get you to talk to me here in just a little bit. The last thing I got was a number 5 at Great Clips or something like that. I'm afraid I don't put a whole lot of time and effort into the top of my head. Y'all have to look at it, not me.
You should, because you have a good head of hair.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. But just talking about his road to recovery, as we always do here on this podcast, and it is where we get to eventually is the recovery part of it. But okay, so a decade of in and out, and he said of the rooms. And let me make sure I don't want to ever just speak pure lingo and have people not understand. Maybe somebody who's new to all this and they're listening to kind of get a clue. The rooms means a 12-step meeting. It could be an AA meeting in Atlanta, in Chattanooga. It could be NA. It could be anything. But the 12-step type organizations, we just refer to those as the rooms. When you first walked into your first meeting, did you have any actual reason to believe that you were going to continue to do that, or was it just something to get somebody off your back?
I went to I guess probably to get people off my back. I mean, even though I wanted help, I was it took me a long time to realize, and I did finally realize that there is a kind of a recipe and a thought, to recovery and going to the AA community. They can't solve your your problems. For so many years I didn't realize it, but I wasn't open-minded because I wanted to hear if it was a gory story, that was a good meeting to me. If it was like something, I was looking for something to grab hold of, but I didn't. Finally, I realized that it wasn't necessary. There's just a simple, it's not easy, but a simple plan to recover and to stay in recovery, and I spent a lot of time, wasted a lot of my precious time trying to look for it the hard way, looking for something that just like Jesus came out of the sky.
Yeah. We'd all love that. We'd all love to be hit with the sunbeam on the road to Damascus, and the scales fall from our eyes, and suddenly have a deep understanding of the universe. It just didn't resonate with me until the last time I was at CADIS, and I went through CADIS. I realized my last rehab. I realized I was able to understand their format and their plan, and if I needed additional therapy, great, go get it. If I, whatever may have gotten me to be, have this lifestyle, social anxiety. Honestly, for me, I had this awareness that I didn't really want to live. When I was drinking, I think my drinking was kind of a way to check out. And I was hoping that what Ozzy Osbourne called the suicide solution.
Yes. I was hoping something would drastically maybe happen. I didn't plan on anything, but I just think that I was sick and tired of being sick and tired before I stopped, So anything short of dramatic didn't make sense to me.
You know how many people I've heard say this, and since 2006, when I first went into rehab and started my own, real, actually intense and focused road to recovery, I've heard people say, I know I can drink again. I'm not scared of drinking again. I'm scared that I will drink again and won't die. I'm the thing that frightens me the most is that I will relapse and it won't kill me because I'll have to go through that again. So let me just use that as a jumping off point to say, folks, it is much easier to stay sober than it is to get sober. And I can definitely say this, speaking just for myself. I know I've got another drunk in me. That's easy. I could walk out of here today and just go get annihilated. I don't know that I have another sobering up in me, because it isn't easy. Even though, as you touched on it, the 12-step way that Alcoholics Anonymous presents, we often talk about people looking for an easier and gentler way and not being able to find it. That is the easier, gentler way, is actually accepting the program and following the rules that have been around for over 90 years now. There must be something to it.
Yeah. And I love the, it's simple, not easy. That makes sense to me at this point. You know, just, I don't necessarily, like for me, I don't have the craving to like, oh, let me go have a drink. I have the craving to get blitzed for 3 days.
Yeah.
You know, that was.
You didn't want to take the edge off. You wanted to go away. You wanted to check out, as you said.
I wanted to be, you know, rambling around 48 hours.
At your height? I mean, what was your consumption level?
Well, I'm a lightweight. I've always been a lightweight. Even if I had tried to smoke marijuana at that point, everything affected me very. So I don't, even though I'm tall, I don't think it took a lot. Even though I don't really know the answer to that question.
Kind of a cheap date.
Well, but I mean, I could still hold. I was still there before anybody else was. After everybody else was.
Well, you mentioned that. Well, it's for some people it's almost a bragging point, and some it's hard to believe just exactly how much people could consume. But you already mentioned your group of friends, your using friends from your days in Atlanta, and how most of them were gone now.
Yeah.
And did they look at you? Did they resent you trying to sober up, getting sober? Did they try to stop you from doing so? Because sometimes, I mean, my experience and a lot of other people's is that their drinking buddies, the last thing they want to do is see you get right, because then it puts the focus back on them.
Well, I do have people that I have to be careful, but I just separated myself from those people, and my clients, most of them are my friends, and I just, for survival, I lost contact with those people, but I still heard about what happened to them, So I've had some people that didn't understand that I just couldn't sit there while you drink, definitely, but I stay away from those people because I love them, but we're going to go to breakfast. We're not going to go to dinner,
Sure.
That's
the kind of little tweakings you can do in your life that makes things a little bit easier.
It took me a year before I could even go to a restaurant and eat. I was just miserable.
Well, again, the program says that you can do anything that you feel you are spiritually ready to do. If that's going to a widespread panic concert, or going out to eat with friends and there's going to be wine, or going to an Oktoberfest celebration because you want to, see the band and eat a salted pretzel. You can do it as long as you're spiritually ready for it. And if you're not, you probably shouldn't push yourself. Your inner voice will be pretty honest with you.
Yeah, I only had one situation that was a retirement party for a client of mine, and she held it at a bar. And I went, and I couldn't get to the bar fast enough. That was one of the moments that you're talking about.
Sure.
I failed.
You know what? One of the things that I learned that helped me was always have the key to my own car, my only way to get the hell away from there, in my pocket. To this day, I still will just suddenly look at my wife and say, I got to go. And she knows exactly what that means. I don't get in the back seat and let somebody drive me somewhere and lose the ability, be trapped. And I still don't. I've never called up an Uber in my life. I wouldn't know how to do it. So I always make sure I have the ripcord I can pull at any given time.
And I say this, even though people that can manage their drinking, they're lovely, but they do get absurd after they've had a few drinks, and I can see that now.
So when all right, so there wasn't an aha moment about drinking. There wasn't one great big, you know what, I've got a real problem. I got to fix this. It was a gradual thing. You said you were kind of in and out.
It was a gradual series of consequences.
And you had to, at some point, though, you had to realize what these guys are saying that I've kind of been ignoring or just listening to, not thinking it applied to me. It really does. There had to be a moment when you think this might actually work for me.
It was actually because, honestly, to answer that, I think that the only thing I could remember where I recognized how easy it is, simple, not easy it is to implement these 12 steps and these program into your life is when I was at Cadis. Like I just watched there, like I was there. Like I had been to rehab before, but I was still wanting it to be like a therapy session, more of a, let's get down and find something, because I was hungry and hurting for somebody to help me find, how to get rid of the pain, get rid of the, but I recognized in this last consequence rehab that no, this is just you make a choice. You decide that you want to put that lifestyle down because I don't have another round of trauma in me. My health, I'm jeopardizing my health. So I guess I had been there. I got there, and then when I was in Cadis, I recognized for the first time I was listening.
Okay, let's since Cadis is the sponsor of this podcast, I'm very glad you brought them back up again. Counsel on Alcohol and Drug Abuse Services here in Chattanooga, and we appreciate you guys tuning into this podcast. And please give a little love to the sponsors, the other sponsors, and support them with your money or at least just your verbal skills. Pat them on the back, give them a hug, do whatever you can. When did you come to Cadis for the first time?
I came to Cadis. I got out in August the 23rd last year in 23. So a little over a year ago. And of course, my DUI was way before that, so it took about a year to get to court. And then so I went through Cadis and I got out in August. Okay. Not this past August, but the August before.
Gotcha. And you were here. You actually stayed. You were in house.
It was they call it a furlough, and that's 3 weeks in Silverdale, and then 3 weeks in Cadis.
And that was all because of a DUI.
That's all because
the process that was the train you got on at that point.
Yes, because I had it would have been a third, but a consequence of a second DUI.
And was it the psychic change that they talk about a lot in the program? They say the same man will drink again. No matter what you're doing, if you haven't really changed something internally, you're probably going to have to learn this lesson again. To me, in 2006, when I went to rehab for the first time, we're very different in one way, and I'll talk about that in a second. That was, to me, the psychic change. The fact that I had gotten to the point where I could no longer control it, no longer hide it, no longer fool anybody, especially myself.
Sure.
And I had to reach out and ask for real help and be institutionalized. When I was leaving that program, which was down in Florida, there was one very, very high-profile individual. We have to remain anonymous here in this program. You would recognize the name. You would recognize the face, who literally said, "You're not ready. You're going to fail. And you have not gone through the psychic change." I said, "Brother, when I walked in this building, when I came through the door, that was my psychic change." Now, I did have a relapse 12 years later, so it doesn't always stick forever. But I'm just telling you, to me, that was it. And you must have, when you arrived here, there had to have been something click, the psychic change. Because you're here talking to me now.
Yes. I can tell you what it feels like. I don't, I said earlier that I want to live, and I realized that it's, during this process, shortly after, it just dawned on me one day. I said, I'm happy. I want to live. I really want to stay on this side of the dirt. And that was a lightning bolt for me. And I loved that light bulb moment. And then, also just I didn't have another run in me. You know, I did not have anything left. I did not have, I just didn't have anything left in me. I was just completely broken.
It's what you just said too. Something I don't think ever gets brought up anywhere near enough is there's a point in sobriety, even if you're just white knuckling it, and you're 20 days in, 40 days in, something like that. There comes a point where at some moment in time, it could be when you're waking up in the morning, you're driving into work, you're just hanging out with somebody, and all of a sudden you realize, you know what? I haven't had a drink in 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. I feel good. I feel good. I mean, I can go into my James Brown impression here if I need to. But I like the way I feel. I like the way I physically feel. I like the way that my brain is clear. And all of a sudden it hits you. This is what a lot of people actually experience all the time. Mm-hmm. Feeling good instead of feeling hungover, being morose, it's a depressant. Alcohol's a depressant. It's going to bring you down. Always being in the very, very lowest level of your existence. And you go, why wouldn't I want this all the time? And that's the part of the disease that is the most difficult to wrap your brain around, is the fact that when you're feeling great, there's a part of you that reaches out and goes, but I'd like to do that thing that made me feel like shit again.
Right. Well, I wrote that in my notes, even though, until it stuck, I wanted to do it, even though it was horrible. I still, it was still my best friend, I had isolated so much. I could go to work and I could, do that, but I had a hard time relating, socially to people. I was drinking by myself toward the end, toward the last few years. At the end, all I wanted to do was drink to go to sleep, and that's pathetic. But that's the way I lived my life for the last few years. And again, repeating, I don't think I had the will to live.
Break. That's the second break, Mary Catherine. All right, we're just going to keep on rolling. 3, 2, 1. My guest is Daniel DeVries, and my name is Jeff Stiles, and this is the Scarred But Smarter podcast from Cadus. And the name pretty much says it all. People have been out there, beating themselves about the head and shoulders with a blunt object for years and years, the object being alcohol, drugs, and things of this nature, and just plain bad lifestyle decisions, bad decisions made when in the throes of using and abusing and completely altered. And Daniel said something, and I want to get to your relapse and the importance of folks out there understanding how serious one drink and one relapse can be. It might not even be a full relapse. It might just be a slip. But you said something about how you went into rehab and you were hoping for a therapy session. And I said, when you mentioned that, I said, I'm just the opposite. We're very different in that I went through my first rehab and 12 years of sobriety and going to the programs without ever dealing with, acknowledging, recognizing, or talking to that inner child. I just wanted to stop drinking. I didn't think there was anything else really wrong with my life. If I could stop drinking, everything would be okay. After my relapse in 2019, and I went to another rehab facility up just outside of Knoxville, I actually did a double tap. I went in, got out too early. I was not ready. I immediately started drinking and went back in. So you could say I've been to rehab 3 times, but really I count that one as one great big failure and whopping relapse that just happened to have, 2 different phases. But that second time in was the first time that a counselor actually got me to look at my life and my past and my history and my family and realized that drinking was not my problem. My problem was deeply internal. And the drinking was a symptom. It was a symptom, and it was an effort of me to try to cure a lot of the things that did happen in my childhood and a lot of the things that just plain weren't right within me. So it took that long for me to actually come to that conclusion. You were looking for it right off the bat. So we took very, very different roads to get here.
Well, I appreciate you saying that.
And that's the rehab. The relapse. Forgive me. Mine snuck up on me. I can tell you, I one day, for no reason, I wasn't particularly happy or particularly sad. I wasn't in any physical pain. We weren't in the middle of a horrible presidential election. There was nothing going on. I wasn't going through a divorce. It was just a day. And all of a sudden, it was like a tractor beam. I said, you know what? wheeled into a liquor store, went in and got me a half a pint, a little bit of grapefruit juice, and a cup, and I had myself a drink to see if I could get away with it. And guess what? The devil let me get away with it. They let me get away with it that time. And the second time, which was probably weeks later, and then a couple of times it was turned into 4 or 5 drinks. And the next thing you know, I am completely and utterly addicted again. I'm going through withdrawals. My hands are shaking. DTs are looming around the corner if I don't continue to drink. And it didn't feel good. I didn't get high. I didn't get anything out of it. Just misery. I think too highly of myself to actually commit suicide, but I asked my wife to shoot me. That didn't go over very well, and I meant it too. So my relapse was horrific, and I hope to never go there again and go through that horrible, horrible feeling. Yours, very different. One drink, one night, one episode, complete life flip-flop. Tell me about it.
Well, I think it was the desire came on around, just like you said, just out of nowhere, and I was at work, and it was the like a Friday, and I tried to just suppress it for a couple of days, and then as the weekend went through, then like I guess Monday, I even I was at St. Paul's. I was at St. Paul's Monday and Tuesday, both, knowing I was going to relapse.
St. Paul's, the Episcopal, the church downtown Chattanooga, where I attend. That is my home group, a noon meeting down there Monday to Friday, and I've seen Daniel down there before.
And I remember looking around the room going, I'm planning a relapse.
You were thinking, you knew you were going to do it before you did it.
I knew I was going to do it. Yeah, I planned it.
Isn't that weird?
Mm-hmm. It is weird. But I tried to deal with it for a couple of days, and then I just thought, to be honest, I thought, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get away. I'm sure I can get away with it.
Sure, nobody's going to know.
Yeah, and nobody will know the wiser. My close friends, we laugh about me letting someone take my dog for a couple of days so that I could just, whoop it up in privacy.
You deserved that. You deserved a break.
I was going to do it.
Yeah.
So I had my dog, and now my friends are like, "Oh, are you going to take your dog to your aunt's house?" That means.
Yeah, we see you beginning to head that way, buddy.
But Wednesday morning, I got up and went to Jack's, got my supplies, my alcohol supplies, and then stopped the last client around 2:30. Had my first drink around 3, and by the sun was still out, I was in jail.
Good Lord.
Yeah,
really did. You hit the accelerator, didn't you?
Well, you were talking about earlier. That's how the progression had been in my body, because even when the blood alcohol came back, my lawyer was like, "Well, if you hadn't had this DUI, I could have gotten this reduced to reckless driving." But the alcohol affected me that bad. I remember.
You said you were lightweight.
Yeah.
And it would be even worse now if you went back out now.
Yeah. It just completely obliterated me, and until. So I was in jail for 3 days. I had to have an ankle bracelet. Had to come out of jail.
Let me stop you right there. So I mean, you were driving on your way to.
I was on my way back. I had went to visit somebody, and on my way back, it was over. So I was at the intersection of Holtzclaw and MLK.
Yeah.
And I was coming back to downtown, and I turned the corner, and I clipped the side of a car.
Oh. And you were in a car that caught attention to begin with. I think Mary Catherine said you were in a Vet.
It was in a Porsche.
Porsche, even more so. So you weren't exactly going under the radar then.
Right.
I got you. Okay.
So got out, but I think this is funny. There's nothing funny about it, but the hit woke me up out of my blackout.
Ow.
And I got out, and I saw what was happening. I hugged the other woman that was in the accident. I jumped back in my car, and I took off. So I made it really hard on myself.
Oh, you did compound it, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, my bail was $64,000. Carlos bonding.
Holy guacamole. Mr. Carlos, I know him well as well. He's on my speed dial. I'm not bragging here. I'm just saying these are the realities we have to live with. My attorney and the Carlos are on my speed dial. So I've been there before myself. Luckily.
Exactly. He's at contact.
Yeah. How in the world I got through my whole mess and got to this point, this day, this moment in my life without actually having an accident where I was charged with drinking, because I drank and drove all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
For some reason, it's my go-to. It had not been for DUIs, I wouldn't have a criminal record.
You might still be drinking.
I might still be drinking, yeah.
So you go to jail, you get a DUI, you got the extenuating circumstances, you ran from the scene,
Yes.
You've made a mess for yourself.
Right. Made a complete mess for myself, and I was so I went to Silverdale, and I think I went in front of the judge the next morning, Judge Statham, and she, of course, put me on 6 months house arrest, or pre-trial house arrest, but it ended up being 6 months, and I finally got to trial, and then of course, but yeah, it was definitely. Thank God I didn't hurt anybody. That's all I can say.
So the end result was, when all was said and done?
The end result was the furlough consequence, the 6 months house arrest. All the other charges were dropped, except for the DUI. And of course, so now the interlock on my car, which I still have.
You still have?
Yes.
So you're still living with that?
Yes.
Still living with very real consequences?
Yes,
not just memories?
I'll be living with the couple thousand I got to pay still to get my license back, court cost. My lawyer was like $16,000.
I don't think it's a surprise to anybody. I don't care if you've ever had a drink or if you can still drink successfully. Mm-hmm. There's nobody listening to this podcast that doesn't understand a DUI is a massively expensive and life-interfering thing. It's not a small thing. This is not a small, minor deal.
And that Porsche, I wrecked it. So, bye-bye. I just bought that car.
Have you ever actually done the total calculation? Cost of the car?
30.
Wow.
35,000. Let's see, the car was 20. It was used. Stevie, my lawyer, she was about 16,000. Court costs was about 3. And I'm probably
lost work time.
Yeah.
All the rest of it. Mm-hmm. Your story ends on a much happier note than some. Now, it may not seem happy to you.
No, I'm very happy.
You're glad to be here. Yes, you said at the very beginning of this interview, you said the relapse and the wreck and the DUI was necessary for you.
It was. I can't believe that it was, but it clicked something inside of me that just wasn't clicking.
But you were able to get out and hug the victim before you drove off. Mm-hmm. A very different ending. And I'm going to say this without, to give using any names again, obviously. But there's another person that goes to the St. Paul meeting. Mm-hmm. I see him there quite often. You might very well know him. And he was in a very similar situation. He had gone for years without drinking and decided he was just going to have a beer one night. He woke up the next day after a complete and total blackout. He remembered where he had stopped for his first drink. He had clearly had several more. He was in an accident and somebody was killed. And if you want to talk about repercussions, the cost financially, his job, loss of a family, his wife, a divorce. It was maybe the absolute worst case scenario you could come up with based on the exact same thing that I did and you did. Just an infinitely worse outcome. That's how dangerous it can be. I'm speaking directly to the people who are currently sober, newly, or have been at 45 years, I don't care. The relapse is going to be so much worse than you think.
It is.
And it could go from my level, I got to go back and get some help, to yours, law coming in and saying, you got to go get some help, to the law saying, your life is over, buddy.
Well, that situation, my heart goes out to that guy. I think about him every day because
I pray for him every day.
I can relate to him.
And a good
I can't
guy.
relate to the severity, but I just think, what if that could have been me? What if that would have been me? And then the situation that happened on Fraser Avenue, the art creation situation, when that happened, it haunted me. And I don't think I'm not being selfish.
A woman and her child were killed by a motorist who drove up on the sidewalk and just body slammed them.
And I'm shamed. I'm just, when I hear of these things, and I'm just so happy that my situation wasn't worse, but my heart goes out to, and it just haunts me. hitting somebody still every day.
It's just the roll of the dice. No. I mean, again, the gentleman that I'm talking about is one of the best people I've ever met. He wasn't a drug kingpin. He wasn't a crime lord. You probably wouldn't even known he had a problem. His life is I mean, he's going to have to completely rebuild, and I think he can, and I think he will. But look at the difference in the consequences. And it literally is just happenstance. You know, it's addiction and the results of addiction. It is a respecter of no person. It is a respecter of no position in life. No race, color, creed, sex, gender, persuasion, orientation. It means none of that means anything.
Right. It's a gift to recover. It's just a gift.
Can I ask you a completely off the wall, left field question? I don't think I've ever seen any figures on this. And you mentioned at the very beginning of the interview, you growing up gay and inside the system in Chattanooga. Are the numbers any different that you're aware of between the straight population and gay population on alcohol and drug abuse?
I think yes, I do.
I'm showing my ignorance.
I think that that probably not in Chattanooga, but in larger cities. Oh, I know it is. I know that the people my age, there's let's say this. Let's put it this way. There's a lot of older gay people in recovery. You know, however they got there, I don't know, but I know, if to go down to a meeting in Atlanta, it's just sometimes would like to do that. I haven't done it, but I think I would probably meet some new friends. But I know that it is definitely more prevalent in the gay community.
Interesting. And that question just literally just popped in my head. I've never even given it any thought before. But I mean, no matter how comfortable and supported you are as a young person and in your life, you know, as into young adulthood, I would still say that has to be. It was an issue for you where it was not for me. It's an additional trial for you that I did not have to deal with, and I can see where that would be and something that could drive you to distraction.
Yeah, I think it was my growing up in the 70s. It's probably different now. It's probably not as the heartache isn't there, the isolation isn't there, the lack of feeling accepted is probably different now than it was then. I'm not 100% sure, but and I don't want to make light of anybody but I know that
they have resources now that you didn't have then.
In my situation, it was me and everybody else, all the straight people.
Well, we're wrapping up this podcast, Daniel, and I appreciate you coming in and taking the time today. Get a plug in for yourself again, and just anything else you want to say in closing.
I really appreciate you inviting me to be here very, very much. Thank you.
No problem. And appreciate good luck to you, and good luck to you. And give the name of your company one more time.
It's 1255 on Market, a studio for hair.
All right.
Thank you, Jeff.
Just a beard trim, if nothing else. I may see you down later today. Thank you, guys.
Scarred But Smarter is presented by Cadis, Council for Alcohol and Drug Abuse Services, Chattanooga's only nonprofit addiction recovery center with a full continuum of care, offering the highest quality of treatment to those struggling with substance abuse disorder, regardless of their ability to pay. Go to cadis.org to learn more about our recovery and aftercare programs or to make a donation, because every gift is much needed and greatly appreciated. Thank you for letting us be a part of your journey. Find us online at cadis.org.
Ferguson Bath Kitchen and Lighting Gallery, your destination for luxury home products that elevate every room in your house. Whether you're renovating your dream bathroom, designing a gourmet kitchen, or illuminating your living space with style, Ferguson has everything you need to turn your vision into reality. Transform your home into a sanctuary of sophistication with Ferguson Bath Kitchen and Lighting Gallery, where luxury meets inspiration. Ferguson proudly supports Cadis.
If you or someone you know is struggling with alcohol or drug abuse, Reach out, seek support. Recovery is within reach. You are not alone, and CADIS will support you or your loved one every step of the way. Please call CADIS today for an assessment, 423-756-7644.